Hey y'all, I'm headed to the garden to do garden chores for the day. It is officially 94 degrees outside and it is hot. It is after lunch. My kids had some activities this morning that we had to go take care of. And so I am just getting out here for the day. Hopefully nothing's wilted since I didn't get to water this morning. Yesterday I worked on trimming up the zucchini plant, so we just have to finish that today. I pulled garlic at the end of last week, and so now we are going to amend our beds and I'm going to plant some green beans in their place. So let's get started. Okay, first task of the day. For whatever reason, this bed is rotted out, and it is not, the oldest one's actually the bed over there, and for whatever reason it never rotted out in any spots, but this one has rotted out. So my husband's gonna rebuild these for me before next summer, and I'm just gonna patch this one to keep the dirt in for the rest of this season while I wait on him to build me some more. So this isn't gonna be perfect, but it's just to get us by. Until he has time to rebuild them. Whoops. Is that one? Just so rotted out down here. Let's see if I can. There we go. Now we got it all tightened up. I'll just screw one in. Okay, that'll hold it for hopefully another season. Until he can get me a new one built. So I'm pretty much, you'll have to excuse the livestock guardian dog who thinks he's supposed to be in my flower bed. They love when the sprinklers come on. But so pretty much what I'm doing, we're at the end of gardening season for squash. It's not gonna thrive too much because like I said, we're at 94 degrees. So it's pretty much fighting for its life right now, and when plants are stressed, they don't produce fruit. But we're gonna do our best to continue to at least get a little bit of fruit. They are getting powdery mildew, but at this stage, I don't wanna treat for a lot of powdery mildew because I use copper fungicide and that can get expensive. And like I said, we're not gonna get much, many more squash at this point. I've already preserved all of the squash that I need for the year. So I'm just gonna start trimming these back. Last year I vertical grew squash, so it was really easy to trim them up. And this year I decided to kind of leave them on the ground because I had more space. I'm not gonna say they did better one way or the other. It is easier though to see these squash bugs, keep the squash vine borers out to control powdery mildew when you vertically grow them up a stake. And I had those videos posted over on TikTok as well. So basically what I'm doing at this time of year is just going through, and any leaves that look like they have sun damage or powdery mildew or holes in them, I'm just cutting them off to allow the plant some air to help prevent powdery mildew and allow like these new leaves that are forming to keep the powdery mildew from hopefully getting on them as well, and just to give the new growth the ability to catch the sun and hopefully help the plant to maybe produce more, maybe not. So we're just gonna go through and finish trimming up these zucchini plants, and then we will move to the squash beds. And when you're trimming them up, I try to only trim below where the next fruit is. So anything, I try and leave 1 to 2 branches below the fruit just to give it some protection, but anything below the part that is producing fruit can actually come off. You do want to leave some limbs though, because the leaves are what absorbs the sunlight for photosynthesis and for the plant to continue to produce. So some leaves are important, but diseased leaves are not beneficial for the plant at this point. And I actually think we did really good to get the plants to this point without any disease. So I'm quite happy with this season. And there is a moldy leaf on that one. So at this point there is a bloom right here, and I'm going to leave the 2 limbs below the bloom. And then this next one just has a lot of powdery mildew, so we're just going to cut it out. There's just 2 more with a ton of powdery mildew on this one, and you can kind of rotate your squash plants around. They have a long stem, and they're actually pretty durable because they will toss around, and there is the bloom. So we pretty much want to stop cutting at that point. So that one is now cleaned up. And you can see that plant, that's that long squash plant, and then the roots of it are actually way back there. So that's like 4 feet long of squash plant, and there are squash bugs all right here. I know that squashing them can bring more, but sometimes that's the only line of defense I have. Holy cow. I must have skipped some eggs and let them hatch out. At this point in the summer, I get so, like it's so hot and there's so much to do. I kind of just get relaxed on keeping up with the squash bugs. Okay, and then this plant over here needs to be trimmed up. My goats love all of these squash leaves, so we will take them over there to them when I'm done and let them chow down on them. I watched somebody the other day eat one, and they said it tasted like celery. I don't think I'm brave enough to try one just yet. And I'm officially at the bloom, so I will leave all of those. And again, this is the squash plant way out here, and its root system is way back here. So you're basically just trimming all the old, because as it grows, it produces fruit down the line. So you're just trimming off the old growth, but leaving enough of the plant that it can still produce. Oh, I broke that leaf, so I might as well cut it off, because it's just gonna wilt anyway. This one's busted too. Okay, there we go. And then as the sun comes out, they'll rotate and prop themselves back up again. And I think this is my last one that I didn't get to yesterday. I'm going to pick him up and move him so that the plant next to him can breathe. In these hot, humid days, we have some tropical storms, I think, rolling in. Tropical storms, tropical depressions in the next week. So, this will be important that I did this when they're wet for the next 4 or 5 days while that storm rolls through. You're also giving those squash bugs less of a place to hide when you do this. I think that's why I like vertical growing so much. Oh, that one just fell right off. Must have had a squash vine borer. Like I said, at this point, it might have been a big deal early on in the season. At this point, it's so hot, we'll just rip it out if it's diseased. We're not going to spend a lot of time trying to save it. Something somebody also once told me is that you grow enough squash plants. Like, you might feel like you're growing too many in the beginning, but you're growing enough that if something accidentally takes one out, like a squash vine borer, then you have backups. So I had 21 zucchini and squash plant this year, so losing the 1 or 2 wasn't going to heavily impact my squash harvest. And like, here's all kind of garlic that I missed pulling the other day. That's crazy. And people will tell you that garlic keeps the squash bugs away, but as you can tell, there were squash bugs all on that garlic that I just pulled. I need to go over there and cut that one. That's a cantaloupe vine, I think. I actually didn't know my cantaloupe was still alive up under here. Okay, I'm just gonna crawl through here. It'll be all right. This is one of those that I actually planted the Mexican sunflowers in here, hoping that they would, which is this big thing, hoping that they would shade the squash and allow me to get a better growing season. And apparently the Mexican sunflower seeds that I grew didn't have a very good germination rate, because out of the 3 packets of seeds that I sprinkled in here, I got 3 plants. This one, there's one right next to it, and then one down at the end. So next year I'll make sure to get those from a different company. And I'll have to look back and see where I purchased them from even. Like, see that squash plant? We'll be able to get a ton of sun and air now. And then it's got a broken off one right there. All right, there's that. Have to get my wagon and take all that to the goats. There's actually quite a bit of zucchini, like on this one right here. Yes, ma'am? What? Huh? Oh my goodness. Y'all two behave and get along, please. Okay. I claimed I did this yesterday, but maybe more just disease tonight. Or this afternoon. I guess it's not tonight, is it? It's afternoon time. I think that one's all cleaned up now. Okay, so now we got all the zucchini cleaned up. I will move on to, I'm gonna take this one out. It's on my nerves. It's hit me in the head. I'll actually probably come back and spray with something when I'm sure the pollinators are gone, because there's a ton of squash bugs in here that I have not seen recently, and it could be that they were like literally hiding in all of the leaves. And like, here's a Mexican sunflower. I think it's just coming off a branch that's coming off that other one. Okay. We got all that done. So now let's move on to the squash bed. It's a little bit different because a lot of the squash that I grew over there are somewhat vining or trailing squash. So my beds are starting to look empty. This is like my not so favorite part. Anyway. So while I am at it, I'm actually going to take out my tomatillo plants. I was so excited for these. And I mean, I'll be able to pick a few of them off, but the leaf-footed bugs got into these and I just cannot get them under control. I've sprayed with spinosad, I have sprayed with pyrethrin, and at this point I am worried that I am messing with the pollinators. And I have nursed this along as long as I could. I've gotten a nice little bag of tomatillos, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this plant out. I was gonna leave it as a host plant for the leaf-footed bugs because they are like really loving it, but I can plant like I'm gonna try and plant Malabar spinach in here because it tolerates the heat here really well. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and probably remove this. Like I said, I tried to nurse it along and you know, it kept wilting and then the leaf-footed bugs got into it. So it's just not meant to be to have tomatillos this year. And as sad as it is, I'm gonna cut them down. You're gonna have something in your garden every year that is an epic fail. And this year, for me, it was tomatillos. I'm really sad about this one. Because in the beginning, they were the most beautiful plants. And they were huge and tall. I think a lot of that also attributed to the amount of wind storms we have had this year. And the limbs would get broken. And I just think, poor thing, it didn't stand a chance this year. So we'll just take it on down, as hard as that is for me to do. It was so beautiful in the beginning. Anyway, you win some, you lose some. Yes, baby. Yes. Can you do it by yourself or do you need some help? Okay, that's fine. Let me know if you need help. Yeah, you can always have it. You don't have to ask me. Just let me know if you need some help. I'll save these. These might be fine. Oh, this is so sad. Anyway. Just a mess. Like, look at all of them. So sad. And there's going to be seeds all in this bed for next year. Because there are tons of dead fruit that has fallen off. Okay, here's this one. Actually probably going to throw these in the dumpster. I do not like tomato cages, but they're so expensive now. Like, I think they were like $5 a piece when I looked at them the other day. Not a fan of tomato cages, but like I said, they're so expensive. Hate to throw away something that's decent. Yeah, I'm just gonna pull that. We'll just start over with this whole bed. Let me get something to put all these tomatillos that fell off. We can feed them to the chickens. These are the beds that I plan to add the oyas to. And actually, I probably should have gone and gotten this stuff to make a few of them. I might do that tomorrow. To make a few of them. While I have the bed somewhat empty. Okay. I'm going to leave this marigold. It'll come back and look better now that that's all out. Okay. Whew. Take these tomatillos over here. I messaged a friend of mine yesterday who also gardens nearby, and she had posted a picture of what her bean plants looked like, and I was like, girl, those things still look good. What in the world? Like, a lot of my stuff has sun damage. And she was like, oh no. She was like, mine is headed out too, so it's just the time of year. I'm not going to take a lot of this off because some of this is wilted because I did not water this morning. So once I get it watered, it'll come back. Now I'm going to do the squash beds. And they ought to be fun because, like I said, there's the lemon squash in there, which are, I'm not going to call it a vining squash. It does have tendrils though. I don't know if the lemon may have grown up a cattle panel trellis if I had had one, and that might be where I plant it next year. And then I'm going to call it like a trailing squash, the white bush scallop, because it doesn't have the tendrils like vining plants, but it definitely ran along the ground. Okay, this one's going to be fun. Where do I start? Okay. As always. inside and get my Stanley filled with water. And I'm looking at the news, and it's supposed to be hotter toward the weekend. And then we have that tropical depression rolling in, I think Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that's going to drop a ton of rain. And I don't usually jump on bandwagons, but these Stanleys are amazing. My papa was a heavy equipment mechanic for years and carried a Stanley every day to work, the same Stanley in the same lunchbox, and I remember him carrying it. And so when people started buying up the Stanleys, this is a bandwagon that I absolutely jumped on. I don't have any of the other types of water thingies that everybody else buys, but I did buy the Stanley and I love it, and I take it everywhere with me, so I'm a Stanley girl. But I'm taking my break really fast, drinking my water, and then we'll get back to that jungle of squash that I'm trying to prune. Sweet babies. Oh, sorry. So this cucumber plant is dying and looks awful, but I'm leaving it because it's shading and protecting the one that's on the backside. So until the one on the backside is done producing, I'm gonna leave the dead, ugly one on the backside. I don't think I can keep going in this heat today, so I'm going to finish trimming up this one tomato plant that's on here and harvesting. There's some blushing fruit on it, and then we will amend the bed and plant the green beans another day. This poor marigold must have snapped off. But yeah, I can't keep going in this heat, so I'm just gonna go ahead and harvest what needs to be harvested and get inside where the air condition is, because this heat is insane. There's a few deceased leaves on here. There we go. All cleaned up now. I'll let that sucker grow. And then I can't give the tomato leaves to the goats because it's a nightshade, and so it would be poisonous to them, so they'll just go in. I have a burn pile that I put the diseased tomato leaves in too. That way it also doesn't spread around the garden to other tomato plants. I have some huge Cherokee purples. Like, I cannot wait for them to start blushing, and then we're fixing to get those 3 days of rain, so I pray that they don't split and crack because they're huge. Okay, I think I'm done for today.